Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the stars through the massive viewing screen. The ship floated in orbit around New Byzantium, one of humanity's newest colonies. She had served in space for 20 years, but the sight of a human world spinning below still filled her with pride. The communication officer turned toward her. "Admiral, we're receiving an encrypted message from Earth. Priority Alpha." Sarah frowned. Priority Alpha meant emergency. She walked to her command chair and activated the secure channel. The hologram that appeared made her blood run cold. "Ambassador." Marcus Webb's face looked tired and worried. Behind him, Sarah could see the emergency session chamber of the Human Colonial Council. "Sarah, we have a problem. A big one." The message continued. The Galactic Confederation had issued humanity an ultimatum. They had 72 hours to withdraw from all colonies beyond the Sol system. Every human settlement, every mining station, every research outpost had to be abandoned. Sarah felt anger rising in her chest. Humanity had followed every galactic law. They had paid their taxes to the Confederation. They had never attacked another species. Their only crime was growing too fast for the taste of the alien empire that ruled the galaxy. The Kethvara Empire controlled the Confederation. They were an ancient race that had conquered most of the galaxy thousands of years ago. To them, humans were newcomers who did not know their place. "The reason they give," Webb continued in the message, "is our recent defense of the Chitauri colonies. They say we are destabilizing the established order by forming alliances with lesser species." Sarah remembered that mission. The Chitauri were insect-like aliens who had been attacked by space pirates. Human ships had driven off the raiders and saved thousands of innocent lives. Now the Confederation called this a crime. The message ended with Webb's final words. "The Colonial Council is meeting now. We need every ship captain's opinion. Send your response immediately." Sarah called her senior officers to the bridge. Commander Jackson, her second-in-command, arrived first. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's science officer, came next. Chief Engineer Torres completed the group. "You all heard the message?" Sarah said. "The Confederation wants us gone. What do you think?" Commander Jackson spoke first. "Admiral, their fleet is massive. Intelligence reports say they have over 2,000 ships of the line. We have maybe 10 capital ships total." Dr. Vasquez shook her head. "It's not about ships. This is about power. The Kethvara have ruled by fear for centuries. They keep species separated so none can challenge them. When we helped the Chitauri, we broke their most important rule." Chief Torres crossed his arms. "So what? We just give up? Let them push us around because they're bigger?" Sarah looked out at New Byzantium again. Down there, 50,000 humans had built a new life. Farmers grew crops in alien soil. Children played in parks under a foreign sun. Scientists studied new forms of life. Artists created beauty inspired by alien landscapes. "No," she said finally, "we don't give up." She opened a channel to Earth. "Ambassador Webb, this is Admiral Chen. The crew of the Defiance votes to stand firm. Humanity does not bow to tyrants." Similar messages poured in from across human space. Captain Morrison on the UES Liberty. Captain Nakamura on the UES Freedom. Captain Okafor on the UES Independence. Every human ship captain gave the same answer. The Colonial Council session lasted 18 hours. Representative after representative spoke. Some urged caution. Others demanded resistance. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Humanity would not withdraw. News of the decision spread across the galaxy in hours. Alien diplomats called it suicide. Military analysts predicted the war would last days, not weeks. The Kethvara fleet began moving toward human space. On New Byzantium, Governor Lisa Park called an emergency assembly. She stood before 10,000 colonists in the main plaza. The crowd was silent as she spoke. "The Confederation has ordered us to leave our homes," she said. "They think we will run because we are afraid. They think we will abandon everything we have built because they have bigger guns." She paused and looked across the faces in the crowd. Men and women who had left Earth to build something new. Families who had risked everything for a chance at a better life. Scientists and engineers and farmers and teachers who believed in humanity's future among the stars. "They are wrong," Governor Park continued. "This is our home now. These are our worlds, and we will not give them up without a fight." The crowd erupted in cheers that could be heard across the city. Similar scenes played out on every human world. On Armstrong Station, the mining crews began converting their equipment into weapons. On New Geneva, the research teams started designing new defensive systems. On Prometheus, the shipbuilders worked around the clock to complete new vessels. Admiral Chen received new orders from Earth. All human ships were to prepare for combat operations. The enemy would expect them to fight like the Confederation did, with massive fleets meeting in open space. Instead, they would fight like humans always had when facing a larger enemy. They would fight smart. Dr. Vasquez brought her a report on Kethvara military tactics. They rely on overwhelming force, she explained. They send huge fleets to crush resistance quickly. They've never faced an enemy that used guerrilla warfare. Chief Torres had been studying the ship's weapons systems. Admiral, with some modifications, we could increase our missile range by 30%. We could hit them before they could hit us. Commander Jackson spread star charts across the table. These are the main shipping routes the Confederation uses. If we hit their supply lines, we could slow their advance. Sarah nodded. Good. Start implementing everything immediately. We have maybe 48 hours before they arrive. The deadline came and went. No human ship left its post. No colony began evacuation. Instead, they sent a message to the galaxy. The message was simple. We are here. We belong here. And we are not leaving. The first Kethvara ships jumped into human space 6 hours later. Massive dreadnoughts emerged from hyperspace near New Byzantium, their hulls gleaming with the dark metal that made them nearly indestructible. Each ship was 3 times the size of humanity's largest vessel. Zarathek commanded the lead ship from her war throne. She was a veteran of dozens of campaigns against rebellious species. None had lasted more than a week. She expected the humans to surrender when they saw her fleet. Instead, she received a transmission from the small human ship that had moved to intercept them. The human admiral appeared on her screen, wearing a simple blue uniform instead of the elaborate armor that proper warriors wore. I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Colonial Defense Force, the woman said. You are not welcome in our space. Turn around and leave, and no one needs to get hurt. Zarathek laughed. Little human, you have 12 ships. I have 200. Surrender now, and you may live to serve the Confederation. Admiral Chen's expression did not change. We tried serving. It didn't work out. Last chance to leave peacefully. Then you will burn, Zarathek replied. But as the Kethvara fleet moved toward New Byzantium, something unexpected happened. The human ships did not retreat. They did not surrender. Instead, they spread out and began moving in patterns that made no sense to traditional military thinking. The real battle was about to begin. The first Kethvara attack came at dawn. Massive energy beams struck New Byzantium's orbital stations, turning metal and concrete into glowing plasma. Zarathek watched from her command ship as the human installations exploded in brilliant flashes. She expected panic. She expected surrender calls. Instead, she got something else entirely. The orbital stations had been decoys. Real defensive positions emerged from asteroid fields and hidden bases. Missile swarms launched from places the Kethvara sensors had missed completely. Human ships that should have been destroyed appeared from behind moons and gas giant rings. How are they still fighting? Demanded Subcommander Veltak. We destroyed their main defenses. Zarathek stared at the tactical display. Red dots representing human forces kept appearing where her intelligence said there should be nothing. They were never where we thought they were. On the surface of New Byzantium, Governor Park watched the battle from a bunker built into the planet's crust. The colonists had spent months preparing for this moment. Every building had hidden weapon emplacements. Every tunnel system connected to vast underground networks. Every citizen knew their role in the defense plan. Phase 1 is complete, reported Colonel Hayes, the colony's military commander. The enemy thinks they destroyed our orbital defenses. They have no idea what's really up there. Above them, Admiral Chen smiled as her plan unfolded. The stations the Kethvara had destroyed were mostly empty shells filled with scrap metal and explosives. The real defensive network was hidden in the asteroid belt, disguised as mining equipment and research stations. All ships, execute Ghost Protocol, she ordered. Human vessels scattered in all directions. Instead of forming battle lines like proper military forces, they split into small groups and disappeared into the dark spaces between planets. the Kethvara fleet found itself shooting at shadows. This was not how wars were supposed to work. In every previous conflict, the Confederation had faced enemies who fought like they did. Massive fleets would meet in open space. The side with more ships would win. Simple and clean. Humans did not fight simple and clean. The UES Liberty appeared, behind a Kethvara cruiser, fired every missile it carried, then vanished back into an asteroid field before the enemy could respond. The cruiser exploded, taking 2 escort vessels with it. The UES Freedom used a comet's tail to hide its approach, emerging at point-blank range to destroy a supply ship. The UES Independence coordinated with mining platforms to turn industrial equipment into weapons, launching chunks of processed ore at enemy vessels. Zarathek had never seen anything like it. "They fight like pirates," she told her staff officers. "No honor, no discipline. How can we counter tactics that make no sense?" "Perhaps," suggested her intelligence officer, "we should study how they think." Dr. Vasquez had prepared for exactly that question. She had spent years studying military history, not just human history, but the conflicts of dozens of species. She knew how the Confederation fought because they always fought the same way. Humans, on the other hand, had thousands of years of experience fighting stronger enemies. "Admiral," she reported to Sarah Chen, "they're trying to adapt to our tactics, but they're still thinking like an empire that has never faced real resistance." "Good," Sarah replied. "Let's give them something new to think about." The next phase of the plan launched from Armstrong Station. What had once been a peaceful mining facility became the center of the most unusual siege in galactic history. The station's administrators had spent months modifying their equipment. Mining lasers became weapons, ore processors became ammunition factories, transport ships became missile platforms. When the Kethvara fleet arrived to capture Armstrong Station, they found a fortress that could defend itself and strike back. The siege lasted 3 weeks. Every day, the defenders found new ways to hurt their attackers. Every night, human supply ships snuck through the blockade to bring fresh equipment and personnel. The siege became famous across the galaxy. News networks on dozens of worlds broadcast the daily battles. Other species watched in amazement as a few thousand humans held off a fleet of 50 ships. But the most important battle was not military. It was the battle for hearts and minds. Ambassador Webb had not been idle while the shooting started. From his hidden base on Europa, he worked with human intelligence officers to gather evidence of Confederation crimes. They found records of species forced into slavery. They discovered worlds stripped of resources and left to die. They uncovered massacres that had been hidden for centuries. All of this evidence was broadcast across the galactic network. For the first time, ordinary citizens of Confederation worlds learned the truth about their government. The Chitauri were the first to respond. The insect-like aliens remembered how humans had saved their colonies. When Kethvara ships arrived to demand they stop trading with humans, the Chitauri Queen sent a simple message: no. 3 Chitauri merchant fleets, loaded with supplies and weapons, jumped toward human space. Other species began to take notice. The crystal beings called Vorthok had always been forced to share their advanced computer technology with the Confederation. Now they started sharing it with humans instead. The aquatic pelagics began providing intelligence about Kethvara fleet movements. Even some Kethvara began to question their leaders. Young officers who had joined the military to protect their people found themselves attacking civilians. Some began sending anonymous tips to human intelligence. Zarathek felt the change in her own crew. Her officers still followed orders, but she could see doubt in their eyes. The war that was supposed to last days had stretched into months. Instead of crushing weak humans, they were fighting an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with every battle. "War leader," her communications officer reported, "we have received new orders from the High Council." The orders were simple. End the human rebellion immediately, using any means necessary. Zarathek stared at the message. Any means necessary. She knew what that meant. Planet-killer weapons. Orbital bombardment of civilian targets, the complete destruction of human civilization. She had used such tactics before against other rebellious species. It was the Confederation way. Resistance meant extinction. But something felt different this time. The humans had not just fought back. They had made allies. They had exposed Confederation crimes to the galaxy. They had shown other species that resistance was possible. "Implement the orders," she told her officers. But for the first time in her career, she felt uncertain about victory. The real test came during the Battle of Thornfield Nebula. Admiral Chen had assembled the largest human fleet ever seen, 30 ships from across human space, reinforced by Chitauri vessels and supported by Vorthak computer systems. The Kethvara sent 200 ships to crush them. The battle should have been a massacre. Instead, it became humanity's first clear victory. Using the nebula's unique properties to hide their movements, the combined human-alien fleet picked apart the enemy formation. They used tactics no Confederation officer had ever seen, coordinated strikes by multiple species, weapon systems that combined human and alien technology, and battle plans that adapted in real time to changing conditions. When the smoke cleared, 80 Kethvara ships had been destroyed or captured. The human-led alliance had lost only 12 vessels. The victory sent shockwaves across the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, someone had defeated the Confederation in open battle. Zarathek limped back to her home base with what remained of her fleet. She found a message waiting from the High Council. The final weapon was being prepared. The humans had 48 hours to surrender, or their homeworld would be destroyed. She looked at the message for a long time. Then she did something she had never done before. She began to compose a secret transmission to the human admiral who had defeated her. The encrypted message reached Admiral Chen 3 hours after the Battle of Thornfield Nebula. She read it twice before calling Dr. Vasquez to her quarters. "Elena, look at this. What do you think?" Dr. Vasquez studied the text on the secure terminal. The message was from Zarathek, the Kethvara war leader who had been hunting them for months. "The High Council prepares a weapon that will destroy your homeworld," the message read. "I have seen this weapon used before. Entire civilizations turn to dust. I send this not from weakness, but because some wars should not be won this way. You have 48 hours. "It could be a trap," Vasquez said carefully. "Could be," Sarah agreed. "But look at the intelligence data she included. Fleet positions, weapon specifications, even the location of their forward command base. This is either the most elaborate trap in history, or she's genuinely trying to help us." The intelligence proved accurate. Within hours, human scouts confirmed every detail Zarathek had provided. The Kethvara were indeed moving a massive weapon toward Earth, but they had also made a critical mistake. They had stripped defenses from their own territory to power the final attack. Sarah called an emergency meeting of all human commanders. The holographic conference room filled with captains and admirals from across human space. Also present were representatives from their new allies, Queen Velmoth of the Chitauri, Prime Calculator Zenth of the Vorthak, and Speaker Tidewalker of the Pelagics. "They're going to try to end this war by destroying Earth," Sarah announced. "But in doing so, they've given us an opportunity." She activated the tactical display. It showed the entire galaxy, with fleet positions marked in different colors: red for Kethvara forces, blue for humans, green for allies. "Most of their ships are moving towards Sol system," she continued. "That leaves their core worlds defended by skeleton crews. We have one chance to end this war before they can use their planet killer." Commander Jackson studied the display. "Admiral, you're talking about attacking the Kethvara homeworld. That's impossible. No one has ever successfully invaded Kethvara Prime." Queen Velmoth's translator device buzzed with clicks and whistles before producing words. "My people said the same about defending our colonies. The humans proved us wrong." Prime. Calculator. Zenth's crystalline form pulsed with different colors as it processed probabilities. "The mathematical chances of success are 17%. However, the mathematical chances of survival if we do nothing are 0%. Speaker Tidewalker's aquatic form floated in its life support tank. Through the translation system, its voice sounded like flowing water. "The deep currents tell us that sometimes the only way forward is through the storm." Sarah nodded. "We're not just fighting for human worlds anymore. The entire galaxy is watching. If we can prove that the Confederation can be defeated, maybe other species will finally stand up for themselves." The plan they developed was the most audacious military operation in galactic history. While a small fleet defended Earth, the main human force would jump directly to Kethvara Prime. At the same time, resistance cells on 17 different worlds would launch coordinated uprisings. Ambassador Webb had been busy during the months of fighting. His network of contacts had grown to include dissidents from dozens of species. Many of them were ready to act if they saw a real chance of success. The key, Webb explained via secure transmission, is timing. If we can create enough chaos simultaneously, the Confederation command structure will collapse. They're not used to fighting on multiple fronts. Dr. Vasquez had discovered something else important. Her analysis of Confederation records showed that the Kethvara maintained power through fear, even over their own people. Most Kethvara citizens had never seen combat. They had no idea how brutal their military could be. If we can show them what their own government is really like, she said, we might find allies on their homeworld. The operation began with a surprise. Instead of fighting the approaching planet-killer weapon, the Earth Defense Fleet opened communications with its crew. Attention Kethvara vessels, Admiral Morrison broadcast on all frequencies. Your leaders have ordered you to commit genocide. Before you fire that weapon, you should know what your government has been hiding from you. What followed was the largest information broadcast in galactic history. Every secret the humans had uncovered, every crime the Confederation had committed, every species they had enslaved or destroyed, all of it transmitted directly to the Kethvara fleet. Many of the Kethvara crew had never heard these stories before. Their government had told them that conquered species were willing partners. They had been taught that the Confederation brought peace and prosperity to the galaxy. The truth was very different. While the planet-killer crew struggled with this new information, the main assault began. Admiral Chen led a combined fleet of 60 ships toward Kethvara Prime. Human vessels, Chithari hive ships, Vorthak crystalline constructs, and pelagic bioships jumped together into the heart of enemy territory. They found a world that had not seen war in 1,000 years. Kethvara Prime was a beautiful planet, covered in vast cities and peaceful gardens. Its orbital defenses were old and mostly ceremonial. Its population had grown soft from centuries of easy living. But instead of attacking the defenseless cities, Admiral Chen did something unprecedented. She opened a communication channel to the entire planet. People of Kethvara Prime, she said, we are not here as conquerors. We are here as liberators. Your government has been committing atrocities in your name. We offer you a chance to learn the truth. The broadcast that followed included testimony from dozens of species, survivors of massacres, former slaves, entire civilizations that had been wiped out to make room for Kethvara expansion. The reaction on Kethvara Prime was immediate and dramatic. Protests erupted in every major city. Citizens demanded answers from their government. Military units began refusing orders. Within hours, the planet was in chaos. The uprisings on other worlds had similar effects. On the industrial world of Targon, the enslaved workforce seized control of the weapon factories. On the agricultural planet of Viridian, the forced laborers declared independence. On the mining stations around distant stars, workers began broadcasting messages of support for the human-led rebellion. Zarathek received reports of the disasters from her command ship. The careful order that had kept the Confederation stable for centuries was falling apart. Her superiors demanded immediate action. Destroy the human fleet, the High Council ordered. Retake our homeworld. Restore order at any cost. But when Zarathek looked at her officers, she saw the same doubt that was spreading throughout the Confederation military. They had joined to protect their people, not to massacre civilians and enslave other species. War leader, her communications officer, reported, we are receiving a transmission from the human admiral. Zarathek almost laughed. After everything that had happened, the humans still wanted to talk. Put it through. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Zarathek could see representatives from multiple species working together. War leader Zarathek, Chen said formally, I believe it's time we met in person. My ship is transmitting coordinates for a neutral meeting location. Come alone, and I will do the same. Zarathek stared at the transmission. Meeting with the enemy commander was unthinkable. It violated every rule of Confederation military doctrine. But then again, everything about this war had violated the rules. I will consider your proposal, she replied. What she did not tell Chen was that she had already made her decision. The time for following orders blindly was over. The galaxy was changing, and she would not let her people be left behind. As her shuttle headed toward the meeting coordinates, Zarathek thought about the message she had sent to the human admiral weeks earlier. She had warned them about the planet killer, expecting them to run or surrender. Instead, they had used the information to launch the most successful military operation in galactic history. Perhaps it was time to learn how these strange humans really thought. The meeting took place on a small research station in neutral space. Admiral Chen arrived first, accompanied only by Dr. Vasquez and a single security officer. When Zarathek's shuttle docked, she came aboard with equal restraint. The two commanders faced each other across a simple metal table. They were very different beings. Sarah Chen was small and compact, her uniform plain and practical. Zarathek was tall and imposing, with scales that shifted color based on her emotions. "You could have destroyed my home world by now," Zarathek said without ceremony. "Why did you not?" Sarah leaned back in her chair. "Because destroying planets is not what we do. We came to free your people, not to conquer them." "Free them from what?" Dr. Vasquez activated a holographic display. It showed records from dozens of worlds, testimony from hundreds of species, evidence of crimes stretching back centuries. "From this," she said simply. Zarathek studied the data in silence. Much of it was new to her. The Confederation government had hidden its worst actions even from its own military commanders. "You think I did not know about some of these events?" she asked finally. "I think," Sarah replied, "that you were told these were necessary actions to maintain peace and order. I think you were told that conquered species were happy to serve the Confederation. I think you believed these things because you wanted to believe your government was honorable." Zarathek's scales shifted to deep purple, a sign of inner conflict. "What you suggest would mean that everything I have served for centuries was a lie." "Not everything," Dr. Vasquez said gently. "Your loyalty to your people is real. Your desire to protect them is honorable. But the system you serve has betrayed both you and them." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Admiral Chen's fleet. Commander Jackson's face appeared on the emergency channel. "Admiral, the planet killer weapon has reached Earth orbit. They're demanding our immediate surrender, or they will fire in 1 hour." Sarah felt ice in her stomach. Despite all their victories, despite controlling Kethvara Prime itself, they had not been able to stop the ultimate weapon. "Admiral," Zarathek said quietly, "give me access to your communications array." Sarah hesitated only a moment before nodding. Zarathek activated her own command codes and opened a channel to the planet killer's crew. "This is War Leader Zarathek," she announced. "By my authority as a member of the Military Council, I order you to power down your weapon immediately." The response came from Admiral Korthval, the fanatic who commanded the planet killer. "War Leader, you have been declared a traitor. Your authority is revoked. The weapon will fire as scheduled." Zarathek's scales flashed bright red with anger. "Korthval, you swore an oath to protect our people, not to commit genocide in their name." "The humans are a disease," Korthval replied. "They will spread their rebellion throughout the galaxy if we do not stop them now. Better to burn 1 world than lose 1,000. The transmission ended. Korthval would not be convinced. Sarah stood up from the table. "Zarathek, your people are going to destroy my homeworld. Billions of innocent lives. After that, do you think they'll stop? Do you think they won't use the same weapon against your own people if they rebel?" Zarathek was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was different. "Admiral, I need to ask you something. If you could save your world, but it meant destroying mine, would you do it?" "No," Sarah replied immediately. "We would find another way. Even if it meant your people would die? Especially then. The moment we start thinking like them, we become them." Zarathek stood and walked to the viewing port. She stared out at the stars for several minutes. When she turned back, her decision was clear. "The planet killer has one weakness," she said. "Its power source. If overloaded, the weapon will destroy itself instead of its target. But the overload must be triggered from inside the ship." Dr. Vasquez understood immediately. "A suicide mission?" "Yes. And it must be someone with the proper command codes. Someone the crew will trust long enough to get close to the power core." Sarah shook her head. I won't ask you to sacrifice yourself for our world. Zarathek's scales shifted to gold, the color of determination. You are not asking. I am offering. My people have spent too many centuries as the galaxy's oppressors. Perhaps it is time we became its protectors instead. The plan came together quickly. Zarathek would take her personal shuttle to the planet killer, claiming she had captured the human admiral and was bringing her for execution. Once aboard, she would make her way to the power core and trigger the overload. But Sarah had a different idea. No, she said firmly. We go together. Two people have a better chance of reaching the core than one. Admiral, Dr. Vasquez protested. If you're both caught, then Commander Jackson takes over the fleet. Elena, this is the only way to be sure. Zarathek gets us aboard. I help her reach the power core. We both make sure the job gets done. Zarathek studied the small human. Woman, you would trust me with your life? You warned us about this weapon when you had no reason to help us. You've seen evidence of your government's crimes and chosen to act against them. Yes, I trust you. The shuttle journey to the planet killer took 2 hours. Sarah spent the time in Kethvara restraints, playing the part of a captured enemy. Zarathek briefed her on the ship's layout and the location of the power core. The overload will give us perhaps 90 seconds to reach an escape pod, Zarathek explained. The ship will be in chaos. Many of my people will die. I'm sorry, Sarah said quietly. So am I. But if we do nothing, billions will die on your world, then more billions on other worlds. This madness must end. The planet killer was the largest ship either of them had ever seen. It stretched for kilometers in every direction, a floating city devoted entirely to destruction. Its weapon array could crack a planet's surface or boil away its oceans. Zarathek's shuttle was cleared for docking without question. The crew trusted their war leader completely. Even Admiral Korthval came to greet them personally. War leader? He said with satisfaction, you have redeemed yourself by bringing us the human admiral. She will have the honor of watching her world die. Indeed, Zarathek replied. But first, I must verify that the weapon is properly calibrated. We cannot afford any mistakes. She led Sarah through the ship's corridors, past weapons systems and defensive arrays, deeper into the vessel's heart. The crew they passed saluted respectfully. None suspected betrayal from their trusted commander. The power core chamber was massive, filled with energy conduits and control systems that hummed. With barely contained force, only a few technicians were present, monitoring the final charging sequence. 10 minutes until we reach full power, one reported to Zarathek. The weapon will be ready to fire. Excellent, Zarathek replied. Then, moving with practiced speed, she activated her sidearm and stunned the technicians. Admiral Chen, quickly, help me access the overload controls. Sarah's restraints were fake, designed to fall away at a touch. She ran to the control panel while Zarathek sealed the chamber doors. The system was labeled in Kethvara script, but the design was logical enough. There, Zarathek pointed to a series of controls. Those manage the containment field. If we reverse the polarity and increase power flow to maximum, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Someone had discovered the unconscious technicians. Security forces would be here within minutes. Sarah's fingers flew over the alien controls, following Zarathek's instructions. The power readings began to climb rapidly, too rapidly. It's working, she reported, but the overload is happening faster than expected. We have maybe 60 seconds. Zarathek was already moving toward the emergency escape pods. This way, move! They ran through corridors that were now filled with panicking crew members. Emergency lights flashed. Computer voices announced containment failure in multiple languages. The great ship began to shake as its own power source turned against it. The escape pod bay was empty. Everyone else was trying to reach the main shuttle bays or larger evacuation craft. Sarah and Zarathek threw themselves into the nearest pod just as the ship's internal structure began to collapse. The pod ejected them into space mere seconds before the planet killer tore itself apart in an explosion that could be seen from Earth's surface. The massive weapon, built to destroy worlds, became a brief new star in the sky. Admiral Korthval and his crew died with their ship. But their sacrifice was not in vain. As news of the planet killer's destruction spread, resistance movements. On dozens of worlds launched final uprisings. The Galactic Confederation, already weakened by months of rebellion, finally collapsed completely. In the escape pod, drifting in the wreckage of the most powerful weapon ever built, two former enemies watched the end of an empire that had ruled for thousands of years. "What happens now?" Zarathek asked. Sarah Chen smiled tiredly. "Now we find out if the galaxy is ready for something better." 6 months after the planet killer's destruction, representatives from 134 species gathered at New Geneva Station. The meeting place had been built from the wreckage of a Confederation fortress, turned into something new and hopeful. Admiral Sarah Chen walked through the station's corridors, watching delegates from across the galaxy work together. The sight still amazed her. Crystalline Vorthak discussed trade agreements with aquatic pelagics. Chithari engineers collaborated with human scientists. Even former Confederation species were learning to interact as equals rather than rulers and subjects. She found Ambassador Webb in the main conference hall reviewing documents for the day's session. The past months had aged him, but his eyes held a satisfaction she had never seen before. "How are the negotiations going?" she asked. Webb looked up from his papers. "Slowly but surely. Today we vote on the final version of the Galactic Charter. The principles are all agreed upon. Now we're working out the details of implementation. The Charter was humanity's gift to the galaxy, but it had been shaped by input from every species. Its core principles were simple. No species could threaten another with extinction. Technology must be shared rather than hoarded. Military alliances must be defensive rather than aggressive, and disputes would be resolved through arbitration, rather than warfare. "Any major objections remaining?" Sarah asked. "A few," Webb admitted. "Some of the former Confederation species are worried about losing their advantages. They've been the privileged class for so long that equality feels like oppression to them." Sarah nodded. She understood the feeling. Change was always difficult, especially for those who had benefited from the old system. Dr. Vasquez approached. Them from across the hall, she carried a datapad filled with reports from across the galaxy. Her new role as head of the Historical Truth Commission kept her constantly busy. "Admiral, Ambassador," she greeted them. "I have the latest updates from the reconstruction efforts." The fall of the Confederation had created chaos across thousands of worlds. Former slave species needed help building new governments. Oppressed populations required food and medical aid. Entire star systems had to learn how to function without the rigid control they had known for centuries. The Rigel system is doing well, Vasquez reported. The former slave colonies have formed a cooperative government. They're already sending representatives to the next assembly session. "What about the resistance on Altair Prime?" Webb asked. Vasquez frowned. "Still problematic. The local Confederation loyalists have formed a terrorist group. They've attacked 3 relief convoys this month." Sarah felt a familiar weight in her chest. Even in victory, there was no perfect peace. Some beings would always choose violence over cooperation, but that did not mean the effort was worthless. "Double the security on the next convoy," she decided, "and make sure the relief supplies get through." A commotion near the main entrance caught their attention. Zarathek had arrived for the day's session, accompanied by delegates from the reformed Kethvara Republic. The former war leader now served as her people's representative to the new galactic government. The transformation in Zarathek was remarkable. Gone was the imposing military commander who had once led fleets of conquest. In her place stood a thoughtful diplomat working to rebuild her species' reputation. Her scales had settled into a steady blue-green, the color of calm determination. "Admiral Chen," she said formally as she approached. "I bring greetings from the Kethvara Council of Elders." "And I bring greetings from the human colonial government," Sarah replied with equal formality. Then she smiled. "How are things on Kethvara Prime?" Zarathek's scales shifted slightly toward warmer tones. "Difficult, but hopeful. We have opened our archives to the Truth Commission. Many of my people are learning about events they never knew occurred. The shame is great, but so is the determination to do better." The morning session focused on economic cooperation. Species that had been forced to give their resources to the Confederation were now free to trade with whomever they chose. New partnerships were forming across traditional boundaries. The Vorthak had shared their crystal technology with a dozen species, creating communication networks that spanned the galaxy. The Pelagics offered their bioships to help transport refugees to new homes. Even the isolationist Zentar had opened limited trade relations with their neighbors. But the most important development was not economic or political, it was cultural. For the first time in galactic history, young beings from different species were working together as equals. Human scientists collaborated with Chithari engineers on new propulsion systems. Kethvara artists created sculptures alongside Vorthak musicians. Pelagic philosophers debated ethics with human theologians. The afternoon session addressed the hardest question of all: what to do about the remaining Confederation loyalists. They control 17 star systems, reported General Morrison, who now led the Galactic Peacekeeping Force. They have refused all attempts at negotiation. They claim the new government is illegitimate. Ambassador Webb studied the tactical displays. They're not wrong that we lack traditional legitimacy. We overthrew the existing order through force. But what legitimacy did the Confederation ever have except the threat of violence? Zarathek spoke from her position at the Kethvara delegation table. My people ruled through fear for thousands of years. We told ourselves it was necessary for peace and order. But true peace cannot be built on the suffering of others. A delegate from the Altarian system stood to speak. These loyalists are attacking relief convoys and terrorizing civilian populations. How long do we allow this to continue? Sarah rose from her seat in the human delegation. As the admiral who had led the rebellion, her words carried special weight. We do not allow it to continue, she said firmly, but we also do not become what we fought against. We offer one final chance for negotiation. If they refuse, then we will stop them by force. But we will not punish entire populations for the actions of their leaders. The vote was unanimous. The Galactic Peacekeeping Force would move against the remaining loyalist systems, but with strict rules of engagement. Civilian targets were forbidden. Surrender would be accepted immediately. The goal was to end the violence, not to seek revenge. The final vote of the day was on the establishment of Unity Station. It would be the permanent seat of the new galactic government, built in neutral space and staffed by representatives from all member species. As the session ended, Sarah found herself standing on an observation deck, looking out at the construction ships already beginning work on the new station. The sight filled her with wonder. A year ago, humanity had been facing extinction. Now they were helping to build a government that represented the hopes of hundreds of species. Remarkable, is it not? Zarathek had joined her at the viewing port. It is, Sarah agreed. Sometimes I still can't believe we actually did it. You did more than win a war, Zarathek said quietly. You showed the galaxy that there was another way to live. My people had forgotten that cooperation was possible. We thought only strength mattered. Strength does matter, Sarah replied, but real strength is knowing when not to use it. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the work crews from a dozen species laboring together to build something that had never existed before, a truly representative galactic government. Dr. Vasquez approached them with a final report of the day. Admiral, I thought you should know. We received a message from the hegemony. Sarah raised an eyebrow. The hegemony was a collection of species beyond the galaxy's rim, known for their aggressive expansion and slave raids. They had been watching the Confederation's collapse with interest. What do they want? She asked. They're demanding tribute from the new government, Vasquez said. They claim the right to raid former Confederation worlds unless we pay them to stay away. Sarah and Zarathek exchanged glances. The look that passed between them would have been familiar to any military officer. It was the look of veterans who had seen too much war, but were prepared for one more fight if necessary. Send them a reply, Sarah said calmly. Tell them that the galaxy is no longer available for conquest. If they want to test that statement, they're welcome to try. Zarathek's scales shifted to deep red, the color of controlled anger. Perhaps it is time the hegemony learned the same lesson the Confederation did. 5 years later, Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Unity Station as the first Galactic Cultural Festival began. Ships from across the galaxy had arrived to share art, music, literature, and ideas. The station bustled with beings from hundreds of worlds, all working together. A young human girl tugged at Sarah's uniform. Excuse me, ma'am. My teacher says you're the admiral who started the war. Is that true? Sarah knelt down to the child's level. I helped start something, yes, but it wasn't really a war. What was it then? Sarah looked out at the festival, where Kethvara children played alongside human youngsters, where Chithari musicians performed for Vorthak audiences, where former enemies had become friends. It was a reminder, she said finally. A reminder that freedom is not something you earn or something you're given. It's something you're born with. And sometimes you have to fight not to win, but to help everyone remember what it means to be truly free.